You can't fix what you don't acknowledge, and you certainly can't wake a person who is pretending to be asleep. That is the fundamental truth I carry with me every single time I walk out onto that stage. But never is it more prevalent, never is it more painfully obvious than when I am dealing with a romance scam. We call them catfished, we call them victims of fraud, but what they really are is addicted. They are addicted to the validation, addicted to the fantasy, and addicted to the version of themselves they see reflected in the eyes of a stranger who doesn't even exist. I have sat across from hundreds of women and men who have lost their life savings, their dignity, and their families, all for a ghost in a machine. But the story of Sarah stands out to me, not because of the money, though the numbers were staggering, but because of the depth of the denial. It wasn't just that she believed a lie, it was that the lie had become the only structural pillar holding up her entire existence. If I kicked that pillar out, I wasn't just proving a man fake, I was risking the collapse of a human being. When I first reviewed the case file for Sarah, the red flags were flying so high they could have been seen from space. Sarah was 54, a retired school administrator, intelligent, articulate, and by all accounts, a woman who had her head on straight for the first 5 decades of her life. She wasn't someone you would look at and think, there is a mark, but predators don't look for stupidity. They look for vulnerability. They look for the cracks in the foundation, and Sarah had a canyon. She had been divorced for 3 years. Her children were grown and moving on with their own lives, and the silence in her house had become deafening. Into that silence walked Richard, a supposed structural engineer working on a high-stakes bridge project in Dubai. My producers briefed me before the show, telling me that Sarah was combative. She wasn't coming on the show to be saved, she was coming on the show to prove her daughter Emily wrong. Emily was the one who wrote to us. She was desperate, terrified, and angry. She told us her mother had changed, that she had become secretive, aggressive, and entirely consumed by this digital relationship. When I walked into the green room to say hello before the taping, I saw Sarah sitting there. She was clutching her phone like it was an oxygen tank. She looked up at me, and I saw a mix of fear and defiance in her eyes. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She was ready to fight me. She was ready to defend Richard as if he were standing right there beside her, instead of being a phantom on a WhatsApp screen. I started the show the way I always do, by trying to understand the person, not the problem. I need to know the currency they are trading in. For Sarah, the currency was relevance. Richard made her feel needed. He made her feel central to a grand narrative. When she sat down in that chair, posture rigid, I asked her simply, "Tell me about Richard." Her entire demeanor shifted. The tension left her shoulders, her face softened, and she began to describe a man who was essentially a romance novel come to life. He was sensitive but strong, wealthy but currently liquid poor due to project complications, and most importantly, he adored her. He told her she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. He told her he had been waiting his whole life to find her. I listened. I let her talk. I let her paint the picture because I needed the audience, and more importantly, I needed Sarah to hear how it sounded out loud. There is a difference between the narrative in your head and the narrative spoken into a microphone. In her head, it was a love story. Spoken out loud under the bright lights of my stage, it started to sound like a script because it was a script. I've read these same lines from Nigerian scam playbooks 1,000 times. My queen, destiny. God brought us together. But I didn't interrupt her yet. I needed to build a baseline. Then I brought Emily out. The dynamic changed instantly. Sarah crossed her arms, turning her body physically away from her daughter. Emily was crying before she even sat down. This is the part that breaks my heart every time. The collateral damage. These scams don't just steal money. They steal mothers. They steal grandmothers. Emily looked at me and said, Dr. Phil, I don't know who this woman is anymore. She missed my son's birthday party because she had to stay home to wait for Richard's call. She's selling her jewelry. She's angry all the time. I looked at Sarah. Is that true? You missed your grandson's birthday for a phone call? Sarah got defensive immediately. It wasn't just a phone call. Richard was in a crisis. His equipment was being held by customs, and if he didn't get the satellite phone working, his crew was in danger. It was life or death, Dr. Phil. Emily doesn't understand the pressure he is under. So, you are his crisis manager now? I asked, keeping my voice level. You are a retired school administrator in Ohio, and suddenly you are managing logistics for a bridge project in Dubai? He trusts me, she said, lifting her chin. He has no one else. His wife died in a car accident 5 years ago. He is all alone over there. The dead wife. It's always a dead wife. It's the perfect sympathy hook. It explains why he's single, why he's lonely, and why he needs a woman's touch. I leaned in. Sarah, I want to talk about the timeline here. You met him on a dating site 6 months ago. In that time, how many times have you video chatted? Face-to-face, live video. She hesitated. This is the dance we do. She knows the answer is bad, so she tries to contextualize it before she gives it. The connection on the oil rig, the bridge site, is very poor. Security is tight. They don't allow cameras because of corporate espionage. So the answer is 0, I said flatly. You have never seen his face move. You have never seen his lips form the words he is typing to you. I have photos, she insisted, reaching for her purse as if to pull out evidence. He sends me photos every day. I know what he looks like. We're going to get to the photos, I told her, signaling her to pause. But I want to stick with the behavior. You have sent him money. Emily says it's over $50,000. Is that accurate? Sarah shifted in her seat. It's a loan. He is a wealthy man, Dr. Phil. He has millions in a secured account, but he can't access it while he is out of the country due to banking freezes. As soon as the project is done, he is paying me back double. He sent me a copy of the check he's going to deposit. A picture of a check is not a check, I said, and $50,000 is a lot of money for a school administrator. Where did that money come from? This was the moment where the air in the room changed. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, not just defensiveness, but terror, genuine terror. She glanced at Emily, then looked back at me. I had savings, she said. Her voice was thinner now. I had a 401k. You drained your retirement? I asked, letting the gravity of that sink in. Sarah, you are 54. That money was your security, that was your future, and you sent it to a man whose voice you have never heard? I have heard his voice, she corrected me quickly. We talk on the phone. Does he have an accent? He's British, she said. He was raised in London, but he's working in Dubai. I looked at my notes. My team investigates these things thoroughly. We trace IP addresses, we reverse image search, we analyze voice patterns. I knew exactly who Richard was, or rather, who he wasn't. But simply telling her he's a fake never works. If I tell her that, she shuts down. She thinks I'm the enemy. I have to make her see the inconsistency herself. I have to make her walk through the logic until she hits a wall she can't climb over. Sarah, I want to understand the nature of your connection, I said, softening my tone again, because I believe that you love him. I believe that you feel loved by him. That feeling is real. The dopamine hitting your brain when your phone pings, That is physiologically real. But we have to look at the cost. Emily is sitting here telling you that she is losing her mother. She is telling you that she is scared. Does that matter to you? Of course it matters, Sarah snapped, tears welling up. But she doesn't support me. She wants me to be alone. She thinks no one could possibly want me unless they want my money. Do you know how much that hurts? To have your own daughter think you are so undesirable that the only reason a man would talk to you is for a paycheck, that was the core wound, right there. It wasn't about the money. It was about her self-worth. She was interpreting Emily's skepticism as an attack on her value as a woman. If Richard was fake, then Sarah was a fool, and worse, she was unlovable. She was clinging to the lie because the truth confirmed her deepest insecurity, that she was past her prime, invisible, and unworthy of romance. I don't think that's what she's saying, I countered. I think she sees a beautiful, intelligent woman being exploited. There is a difference. But Sarah, there is something else here. I'm looking at your file, and I'm looking at the financial records you provided to my producers. The math isn't adding up. You said you sent $50,000, but the withdrawals, they look like more. She went stiff, statue still. The silence that followed my question wasn't empty, it was heavy. It was the kind of silence that has weight and mass pressing down on everyone in the studio. Sarah sat there, her mouth slightly open, looking for an exit ramp that didn't exist. She had constructed a reality where she was the hero, the savior of a wealthy man's empire, but I was holding a ledger that told a story of reckless desperation. I didn't want to break her, but I had to break the shell. Sarah, I said, dropping my voice to that low, serious register that tells a guest there is nowhere left to hide. I'm looking at transfers here that go well beyond a 401k. I'm seeing a line of credit opened against your home. I'm seeing cash advances on 4 different credit cards. But there is something else here, something that scares me more than the debt. I found deposits into your account from people you don't know, strangers. And then, within 24 hours, that same amount is wired out to Richard via cryptocurrency or untraceable wire transfers. Tell me what I am looking at. This was the secret. This was the thing she hadn't told Emily. This was the thing she hadn't told anyone. Because deep down, in the quiet corners of her mind, where the logic still lived, she knew it was wrong. She knew it looked like a crime. She swallowed hard, her hands trembling as she smoothed her skirt. Richard, he has business associates in the States, she stammered, her voice gaining a frantic pitch. Like I said, his accounts are frozen because of the international banking regulations in Dubai. He needed a trusted agent, someone with a clean record, someone impeccable to act as a localized clearinghouse for his equipment fees. Those people depositing money, they are investors. They are buying shares in the bridge project. I facilitate the transfer to get the money to the suppliers. The audience gasped. They knew. Even if they didn't know the legal terms, they knew what this was. Emily let out a sound that was half sob, half scream. Mom, you're laundering money. I am not, Sarah shot back, her face flushing a deep, angry crimson. I am a project manager. I am helping him build infrastructure. You see, Dr. Phil? She thinks I'm a criminal now. She thinks I'm stupid. I don't think you're stupid, Sarah, I interjected, leaning forward, resting my elbows on my knees. I think you are addicted to the way this man makes you feel. And you are willing to suspend all critical thinking to keep that feeling alive. But we need to call this what it is. You are acting as a money mule. You are taking stolen funds, because that is what those investments likely are, money from other victims, and you are washing it for a criminal syndicate. If the FBI knocks on your door tomorrow, Richard isn't going to answer. He's a ghost. You are the one whose name is on the wire transfers. You are the one who is going to prison. He wouldn't let that happen, she insisted, though her voice wavered. He loves me. He sent me his passport. I have a copy of his passport, Dr. Phil. Would a scammer send you his official government ID? This is the classic deflection. When the behavior is indefensible, they pivot to the proof of identity. They cling to the artifacts the scammer has fed them. We're going to look at that passport I promised her. But I want to stay on this secret for a moment. You didn't tell Emily about these transfers. Why? If it's a legitimate business deal, if you are a project manager, why hide it? Because she wouldn't understand, Sarah whispered. She judges everything. Or did you hide it because your gut was screaming at you? I challenged her. Sarah, you were a school administrator for 30 years. You know rules. You know protocol. If a stranger walked into your office and asked you to hold $10,000 in cash and then hand it to a guy in the parking lot, would you do it? But because this man calls you queen, because he sends you poetry, because he tells you that you are the only one he trusts, you are willing to commit a federal crime. That is the power of this addiction. It overrides your survival instinct. I signaled to the production team it was time to dismantle the phantom. Words weren't enough for Sarah. She needed visuals. She needed to see the strings on the puppet. You mentioned his passport, I said, pointing to the massive screen behind us, and you mentioned the photos he sends you. Let's take a look at the man you love. This is the man you've been sending your life savings to, correct? A photo appeared on the screen. It was a handsome man, silver-haired, rugged, wearing a hard hat, standing in front of a construction site. He looked capable. He looked trustworthy. He looked exactly like the kind of man a woman like Sarah would dream of meeting. Yes, Sarah said, a small, proud smile touching her lips. That's Richard. That was taken last week at the site. Okay, I said. My team took this photo and we ran a very simple reverse image search. Sarah, do you know who Anthony Miller is? She blinked. No? Anthony Miller is a retired contractor living in Scottsdale, Arizona. He has a wife of 40 years. He has 3 grandchildren. And he has a Facebook page where he posts updates for his family. The screen changed. On the left was Richard's photo. On the right was the exact same photo, but it was a screenshot from a Facebook profile belonging to Anthony Miller, dated 4 years ago. The caption on the Facebook post read, "Checking on the new patio extension for the grandkids." The audience was dead silent. Sarah stared at the screen. She didn't blink. She didn't cry. She just stared. That's manipulated, she said finally. Her voice was flat, mechanical. Someone stole Richard's photo and put it on Facebook. Sarah, I said gently, the Facebook post is from 2019. Richard sent you this photo last week. He could have taken it in 2019, she grasped at the straw. He's been in the industry a long time. Okay, I said, let's look at another one. The next image popped up. It was Richard in a tuxedo holding a glass of champagne. Very debonair. This is from an advertisement for a menswear catalog in Germany, I said, as the side-by-side proof appeared. This is a model. This isn't even the same man as the first photo, Sarah. Look at the earlobes. Look at the nose. They are 2 different human beings. They look alike, she argued, but she was shifting in her chair now, physically pulling away from the screen. It's just a bad angle. And maybe he used a stock photo because he's shy. He told me he doesn't like having his picture taken because of his security clearance. Maybe he sent me a representation of what he looks like. A representation? I repeated, Sarah, stop. Listen to yourself. You are doing mental gymnastics to excuse a man who is lying to your face. He is not a structural engineer. He is not in Dubai. And he is certainly not in love with you. You don't know that, she yelled. Suddenly finding her fire again, she pointed a finger at me. You don't know his heart. We talk for hours. He knows things about me that no one knows. He knows about my childhood. He knows about my fears. A scammer doesn't listen, Dr. Phil. A scammer wants money and leaves. Richard stays on the phone with me until I fall asleep. Why would he do that if it was just a scam? Because you are the golden goose, I said, matching her intensity. Because as long as he keeps you on the phone, you keep tapping into your home equity, you keep moving stolen money for him. That time he spends on the phone, that is his job. That is his shift work. He is clocking in. I don't believe you, she said, crossing her arms tight across her chest, creating a physical barrier between us. I have talked to him. I know his voice. Good, I said. I was hoping you would say that. I looked at the camera because we have a little surprise. We track the number you've been calling. It's a VoIP number, voice over IP. It's a computer-generated number that can look like it's coming from anywhere. But we trace the origin of the data packets. Sarah looked terrified now. She knew what was coming, but she couldn't look away. It's not Dubai, Sarah, I told her. It's not London. The calls are originating from a cyber cafe in Lagos, Nigeria. No, she whispered. And I continued playing my ace. We managed to get a recording. We had an investigator call the number you provided, posing as a bank official regarding a wire transfer. I nodded to the audio engineer. Play the tape. The speakers crackled. A voice came through. It wasn't the refined British accent Sarah had described. It was a young man speaking in broken English, laughing with someone in the background in a dialect that was distinctly West African. Hello? Yes? The money is there? You tell her to send it now. Tell her the machine is broken, she will believe it. The recording cut off. The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning. I watched Sarah. I watched the color drain out of her face until she looked like she was made of wax. The delusion was cracking. The structural integrity of her fantasy was failing. But I knew from years of doing this that this is the most dangerous moment. When reality hits this hard, the human mind has two choices: accept the trauma or double down into total psychosis. Sarah looked at Emily. Emily was weeping, her hands covering her mouth. Sarah looked at me, then she looked down at her hands. That's not him, she said. I paused. I didn't expect her to surrender immediately, but the denial was absolute. That was him, Sarah. That was the number on your phone bill. No, she shook her head, her eyes wide and manic. Someone stole his phone. He told me this might happen. He told me his enemies were trying to intercept his communications. That man on the tape, that's the man trying to sabotage the bridge. Richard is in danger. She stood up. I have to call him. He needs to know you people are tracking him. You're putting him in danger. She was spiraling. She was fully retreating into the fantasy because the alternative that she had destroyed her life for a lie was too painful to bear. I had to stop her. I had to get physical, not in a literal sense, but in a present sense. I had to occupy her reality before she fled the stage. Sarah was standing now, clutching her phone like a lifeline, her eyes darting between the exit sign and me. She wasn't just a guest on a talk show anymore. She was a woman on the precipice of a complete psychological break. She was trying to flee the scene of the accident of her own life, colliding with the truth. Sit down, Sarah, I said. I didn't yell, but I put enough authority in it to make her pause. You are not going to call him. You are not going to warn him, because if you do that, you are becoming an active accomplice to a crime. You need to understand the gravity of where you are standing right now. She hesitated, her hand hovering over her phone screen. He's in danger, she whispered, her voice trembling. You don't understand the people he's up against. I understand exactly who he is. Up against, I countered, walking around the desk to stand closer to her, closing the physical distance. He is up against reality. And right now, Sarah, so are you. Sit down. Slowly, reluctantly, she sank back into the chair. She looked small. The defiance was evaporating, replaced by a raw, naked panic. She looked at Emily again, but this time there was no anger, only confusion. She was looking for a familiar anchor in a world that had suddenly turned upside down. I want you to listen to me, I said, leaning in, making eye contact. I am not your enemy. Emily is not your enemy. We are the only people in this room who actually care if you live or die. That man on the phone, he doesn't care if you lose your house. He doesn't care if you go to prison. He doesn't care if you starve. To him, you are a paycheck. You are a number on a screen. But the feelings, she started, her voice breaking. Dr. Phil, the feelings are real. How can the feelings be real if he isn't? How can I feel so much love for something that doesn't exist? Because you have a big heart, I told her, validating the emotion while rejecting the cause. You have a capacity for love that is beautiful, but you are pouring that water into a bucket with a hole in it. You projected your desire, your loneliness, and your hope onto a blank screen, and he just mirrored it back to you. He became whatever you needed him to be. If you said you liked gardening, suddenly he loved roses. If you said you were afraid of storms, suddenly he was the protector. He didn't create that love, Sarah. You did. He just hijacked it. I could see the gears turning. She was fighting it, fighting the grief that was waiting to crash over her. I need to show you one more thing, I said. I know this is hard. I know this feels like I am bullying you, but I am trying to save you. We had our investigators dig deeper into the investors you mentioned, the people sending you money. I signaled the control room. A new image appeared on the screen. It was a photo of an elderly woman, frail, sitting in a wheelchair. Next to it was a copy of a police report. This is Margaret, I said. Margaret is 82 years old. She lives in Florida. She suffers from early onset dementia. 2 weeks ago, Margaret wired $15,000 to an account in Ohio. Your account, Sarah. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Margaret thought she was sending money to her grandson for college tuition. I continued, my voice hard now. She was told by a lawyer on the phone that her grandson was in trouble. She emptied her savings. That money went to you, and you sent it to Nigeria. I didn't know, Sarah stammered, tears streaming down her face now. He told me it was an investor. He said it was a venture capital firm. Does Margaret look like a venture capital firm, I asked, pointing at the frail woman on the screen. Does she look like a high-stakes bridge investor? No, Sarah sobbed. Oh my God, no. This is the reality, I said. You are not helping build a bridge. You are helping rob grandmothers. You are the getaway driver for a mugging you didn't even know was happening, but now you know. Now you see the face of the victim. And Sarah, that victim isn't just you. It's Margaret, it's Emily, it's everyone in your life. This was the breakthrough. The romance narrative, the us against the world fantasy couldn't survive the image of Margaret. Sarah could justify hurting herself. She could justify the risk to her own finances as a gamble for love. But she was a mother. She was a former educator. She had a moral compass, even if it had been magnetized by a scammer. Seeing that she had hurt an innocent elderly woman shattered the illusion that Richard was a noble man in trouble. A noble man doesn't steal from grandmothers. Sarah put her head in her hands and wept. It was a guttural, deep sound, the sound of a heart breaking not just from lost love, but from shame. I let her cry. I let the audience sit with it. This is the part of the show that isn't entertainment. It's therapy. It's the necessary pain of lancing a boil. After a moment, I handed her a tissue. I know this hurts, I said softly. I know you feel foolish. I know you feel used. But Sarah, shame is a wasted emotion right now. Shame will make you hide. Shame will make you go back to him because he's the only one who tells you you're wonderful. We need to replace that shame with action. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen. What do? I've lost everything. The money is gone. I'm a criminal. You are a victim who was manipulated into criminal activity. I corrected. But now that you know, you have a choice. You can continue to be a victim or you can start to be a survivor. The first step is simple. The phone. I held out my hand. Give me the phone, Sarah. She looked at the device in her lap. It was her connection to him. It was the dopamine dispenser. Giving it up was like asking a junkie to hand over their needle. I can just block him, she said weakly. No, I said firmly. Because at 2 a.m., when you're lonely and the silence in the house is loud and you're wondering if maybe, just maybe, I was wrong, you will unblock him. You will check for a message, and he will have sent one. He will tell you, I forced you. He will tell you the photo of Margaret was a fake. He will spin a new web. You cannot fight this addiction alone right now. You need to go cold turkey. I kept my hand extended. Give me the phone. Emily spoke up from the other chair. Mom, please give it to him. I want my mom back. Sarah looked at Emily. She saw the pain in her daughter's face, pain that she had caused, pain that Richard had caused. She took a deep breath, her hand trembling violently, and she placed the phone in my hand. I didn't triumphantly hold it up. I simply handed it to a producer off stage. Turn it off. Bag it. We are going to turn that over to the authorities as evidence, along with the chat logs. I turned back to Sarah. You just took the biggest step of your life, but we aren't done. We have to deal with the fallout. I'm going to go to jail, she said, her voice hollow. I am not a lawyer, I said, but I have resources. We are going to get you legal counsel. We are going to have you cooperate fully with the authorities. You are going to tell them everything, every transfer, every message. When you cooperate, when you show that you were manipulated and that you are now trying to make it right, that goes a long way. But more importantly, we need to deal with why this happened. I sat back down in my chair. Sarah, money can be earned back. Legal issues can be navigated. But if we don't fix the hole in your heart that let this man in, another one will come along. Maybe not online, maybe in person, but you are walking around with a sign on your forehead that says, I am empty, please fill me. We need to take that sign down. How? She asked. I'm 54, I'm divorced, I'm alone. You are not alone, I said, gesturing to Emily. You have a daughter who loves you enough to drag you on national television to save your life. Do you know how much courage that takes? She risked you hating her forever because she couldn't watch you destroy yourself. Sarah reached out and took Emily's hand. It was the first time they had touched since they walked on stage. Emily squeezed back, tears running down her cheeks. I also have a plan for you, I said. I have arranged for you to work with a specialized therapist back in Ohio who deals specifically with victims of romance scam. This isn't just about grief. It's about deprogramming. It's about rebuilding your self-esteem so that your value isn't dependent on a man telling you you're pretty. You are a woman of substance, Sarah. You ran a school. You raised a child. You have value. You don't need a ghost in Dubai to validate that. She nodded slowly. I feel so stupid, she whispered again. Stop it, I said. You are not stupid. You are human. You wanted to be loved. That is the most human thing there is. But now you have to love yourself enough to protect yourself. I looked at the audience. This is a cautionary tale for everyone watching. If you are talking to someone online and they ask for money, the answer is no, period. If they can't video chat, the answer is goodbye, period. If their story sounds like a movie script, it's because it is one. Do not let your loneliness write a check that your reality can't cash. I turned back to Sarah for the final thought of the segment. This is going to be a long road. You have financial ruin to clean up. You have trust to rebuild with your family. But you are awake now. The dream is over. And I promise you, the waking world, with all its pain, is better than a comfortable lie. Because this is real. Emily is real. Your life is real. Thank you, Sarah said, her voice barely audible. Don't thank me yet, I said. Do the work. That's how you thank me. We cut to commercial. The lights dimmed on the stage, but the work wasn't done. I stayed in my chair as the producers swarmed. Sarah looked like she had just gone 10 rounds with a heavyweight boxer. In a way, she had fought her own demons and lost, but in losing the delusion, she had won her life back. I walked over to her. As the cameras were repositioning, I put a hand on her shoulder. You did good, I told her quietly. That was the hardest thing you'll ever have to do. Facing the truth usually is. She looked up at me, eyes tired but clear for the first time. He's really not real, is he? No, Sarah, I said. He's not, but you are. And that's what matters. I watched her walk off stage with Emily. They were walking close together, leaning on each other. The dynamic had shifted. The mother wasn't the authority figure anymore. She was the wounded one, and the daughter was the caregiver. That would be a hard adjustment. The shame would linger. The financial devastation would take years to sort out. But they were walking out together. They weren't walking out with a ghost. As I prepared for the next segment, I thought about The Secret. The title of the show was about the secret, she told me, the money laundering, the hidden transfers. But the real secret wasn't the crime. The real secret was the loneliness. That is the silent epidemic we don't talk about enough. We are more connected than ever, yet we are starving for connection. We have 1,000 friends on Facebook and no one to call when we cry. That void is where the predators live. They set up camp in the empty spaces of our lives and build castles out of our desperation. Sarah's story wasn't unique. The details change, oil rigs, gold bars, secret missions, but the core is always the same. I see you, I value you, help me. It is a weaponized intimacy. And until we learn to value ourselves enough to spot the counterfeit, until we learn that love doesn't ask for a wire transfer, we are all just one bad day away from being Sarah. I adjusted my tie, took a sip of water, and waited for the stage manager to count me in. The next guest was waiting. Another problem, another crisis, another life hanging in the balance. But for today, for this hour, We had stopped one bleeding wound. We had pulled one person back from the edge. And in my line of work, that's a win. The cameras cut, the studio lights dimmed, and the frantic energy of the taping began to dissipate. But my mind was still running diagnostics on Sarah. We had achieved the breakthrough, the moment of realization, but anyone who works in mental health knows that an epiphany is not a cure. It is merely the starting gun for the marathon of recovery. I walked backstage to the green room where Sarah and Emily were waiting. The post-show debrief is often more critical than the show itself. On stage, there is adrenaline. Backstage, there is just the crushing weight of consequences. Sarah was slumped on a sofa, a cup of lukewarm water in her hand. Emily was on her phone, likely trying to figure out which lawyer to call first. "How are you holding up?" I asked, pulling up a chair opposite them. I didn't use my TV voice. This was just Dr. Phil, the man who has seen too many people walk off a cliff because they didn't watch their step. Sarah looked up. The defiance was completely gone, replaced by a gray, hollow exhaustion. "I feel like I'm going to throw up," she admitted. "I keep thinking about Margaret. That poor woman in the wheelchair, I stole from her." "You were the mechanism." I corrected her again. "You were the tool." But Sarah, you have to understand something crucial right now. Guilt is useful if it motivates change. Shame is useless if it just paralyzes you. If you sit here and hate yourself, Richard wins. He not only took your money, he took your soul. You can't give him that. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. "The bank called me yesterday. They're closing my accounts. They said I'm a high-risk client. I have bills due. I have nothing." "We're going to handle the triage," I said. "My team has already reached out to a forensic accountant who works with fraud victims. They can't promise to get the money back. That money is likely in crypto wallets halfway across the world by now, but they can help you structure the debt. They can help you talk to the feds so you don't end up in handcuffs." I paused, looking at Emily and you. "You have a job to do." Emily looked up, startled. "Me?" "Yes, you. You are angry. You have every right to be. Your inheritance is gone. Your mom has been lying to you. Your trust is broken. But right now, she is fragile. If you punish her, she will break. I need you to be the parent for a little while. Can you do that?" Emily looked at her mother, then nodded slowly. I missed her. I just want her back." "She's back," I said. "She's battered and bruised, but she's back in the room. The woman talking to Richard wasn't your mother. She was an addict getting her fix. That woman is gone now." I turned back to Sarah. "I want to talk about what happens tonight. When you go back to the hotel, it's going to be quiet. You don't have your phone. You're going to feel a panic rising in your chest. You're going to wonder if he's worried about you. You're going to wonder if maybe, just maybe, I was part of the conspiracy to keep you apart. The brain does funny things when it's going through withdrawal." "I know," Sarah said. "I can already feel it. I keep reaching for my pocket." "That's why you are not sleeping alone tonight," I instructed. "Emily, you stay in the room with her. If she wakes up pacing, you talk to her. You play cards. You watch bad movies. Do not let her sit in the silence." "I will," Emily promised. "And Sarah," I added, leaning in close, "I want you to write something down. Do you have a pen?" She fumbled in her purse, a reflex, realizing her phone wasn't there to take notes, and found a pen and a napkin. "Write this down. I am worth more than a lie." She wrote it, her hand shaking. "Read it. I am worth more than a lie. Keep that. Tape it to the bathroom mirror. Because for the last 6 months, you have been selling yourself for a discount price. You have been trading your integrity, your financial security, and your family for a cheap imitation of love. You need to remind yourself of your value every single day until you believe it again. I stood up. The resources are set up. The therapist will contact you tomorrow. The legal team is on standby. But the heavy lifting, that's on you. I can't walk this road for you, Sarah. I can only point the way. She stood up too, a little unsteady, and hugged me. It was a desperate hug, the kind a drowning person gives a lifeguard. Thank you, she sobbed into my shoulder. Thank you for stopping me. I think I would have done anything he asked. I think I would have gone there. Gone where? I asked, pulling back. Dubai, she said, wiping her eyes. He asked me to come. He said if I brought the last $10,000 in cash, I could fly over and we could get married. I was looking at flights. A chill went down my spine. That is the final stage of the trap. Sometimes they just want the money. Sometimes if the victim shows up, they become a hostage. Or worse, you didn't go, I said firmly, you're here, you're safe, keep it that way. I left the green room and walked down the long corridor of the studio. The hum of the production was still there, people moving sets, testing mics for the next taping, but I felt the heaviness of Sarah's near miss. She was looking at flights. She was ready to physically transport herself into the lion's den. It just goes to show how powerful the delusion can be. It overrides the survival instinct. It rewires the brain's risk assessment centers. I went into my dressing room and sat down for a moment of quiet. I looked at the monitor where the feed from the stage was usually playing. It was blank now, just a black reflection. People ask me why I do this, why I keep wading into the muck of human misery week after week. They say it's sensationalism, they say it's exploitation, and sure, it's television. We package it, we edit it, we add dramatic music, but underneath the gloss, underneath the lights, there is a fundamental mission, waking people up. Sarah was asleep at the wheel of her own life, driving 100 miles an hour toward a brick wall. Today, we grab the wheel. We jerk the car back onto the road. There's damage to the fender, the paint is scratched, and the engine is smoking. But the car didn't crash. She is alive. Margaret, the elderly victim, might get some justice now that we have the paper trail. The Richard in Lagos might have to burn that phone number and start over, slowing him down for a few days. It's not a perfect victory. But in this war, the war against fraud, against delusion, against the silent despair of loneliness, there are no perfect victories. There are just saves. I thought about the thousands of other Sarahs out there, the women sitting in empty houses right now, staring at a phone, waiting for a good morning, my queen message from a bot. They are smart women. They are kind women. But they are hungry, and hunger makes you eat poison if it's served on a nice plate. I took a deep breath, stood up, and straightened my jacket. The producer knocked on the door. 5 minutes to tape, Dr. Phil. The next guests are the parents dealing with the teen runaway. I'm ready, I said, and I was. Because you can't dwell on the one you just saved. You have to be ready for the next one who is drowning. That is the job. That is the life. But as I walked back toward the stage, Sarah's words echoed in my head. I think I would have gone there. We didn't just save her bank account today, we saved her life. And that is why I never get tired of this. That is why when the red light goes on, I am exactly where I need to be. Let's go do it, I said to the stage manager. The doors opened, the applause started. I walked out into the light. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Phil. The cycle begins again. But for Sarah, the cycle has broken. And that, as I always say, is a changing day in her life. The applause washed over me, a familiar wave of sound that signals the beginning of another intervention, another dive into the complexities of the human condition. But as I settled into my chair and introduced the next family, a part of my mind remained tethered to Sarah. It's the nature of this work. You don't just switch off the empathy like a light switch. You carry the residue of each story with you. That night, after the final taping, I sat in my car as my driver navigated the Los Angeles traffic. I pulled out my tablet and opened the secure file on Sarah's case. My team had already uploaded the initial report from the forensic psychologist I'd referred her to. It was preliminary, but it confirmed what I suspected. Sarah scored high on the susceptibility to coercive control scale. It wasn't that she was weak, it was that she was conditioned to please. Her history, a long marriage where she was the silent partner, a career in administration where she followed rules, had primed her for a predator who gave orders disguised as requests. Richard hadn't just seduced her, he had managed her. I made a note to call the therapist myself in the morning. I wanted to ensure they focused on the sunk cost fallacy. That's the psychological trap, where you keep investing in a mistake because stopping would mean admitting everything you've lost so far was for nothing. Sarah had lost her retirement, her reputation, and her daughter's trust. The temptation to believe that maybe, just maybe, if she sent one more payment, Richard would turn out to be real and fix everything. That temptation would be a siren song in the coming weeks. We had to lash her to the mast. A few days later, I received an update from Emily. It was a short email, but it spoke volumes. Dr. Phil, Mom is struggling. She cries a lot. She keeps reaching for her phone even though it's not there. But last night, she asked me to help her go through her bank statements. She actually looked at the numbers. She saw the transfers to the names she didn't know. She threw up again, but she didn't stop looking. We made a spreadsheet. It's ugly, but it's real. Thank you for giving her back to me. We have a long way to go, but at least we're on the same map now. Reading that, I felt a release of tension I hadn't realized I was holding. This is the unglamorous part of the process, the spreadsheet phase. It's not good TV. There are no dramatic music cues. It's just a mother and daughter sitting at a kitchen table, staring at the wreckage of their financial life, trying to figure out how to pay the electric bill. But that is where the real healing happens. That is where the rubber meets the road. I often say that you can't change what you don't acknowledge. Sarah was finally acknowledging the math. And math, unlike Richard, doesn't lie. Math doesn't tell you you're beautiful to get a wire transfer. Math just is. It's cold, but it's honest. And right now, honesty was the only medicine that could save her. I thought back to the moment on stage when she admitted she was planning to go to Dubai. That haunts me. We see cases like that turn into international kidnapping incidents, or worse, disappearances that are never solved. A middle-aged American woman landing in a foreign country, expecting a wealthy engineer and being met by a criminal syndicate. The outcome is never a wedding. It's a tragedy. By stripping away her fantasy, we didn't just save her dignity, we likely kept her off a missing persons poster. Weeks turned into months. The season wrapped, and we moved into hiatus. But the Sarah file stayed on my desk. I tracked the progress of the investigation. The FBI had taken the data we provided. They managed to freeze 2 of the intermediary accounts, the mules, who were unknowingly laundering the money before it went overseas. It was a drop in the ocean of international cybercrime, but it was something. Margaret, the elderly woman in the wheelchair, got a portion of her money back because the transfer had been flagged in time. That was a small miracle. 6 months after the taping, I got a request for a follow-up. Sarah wanted to come back, not for a full show, but just to talk. to close the loop. I met her in my office, away from the audience. She looked different. The frantic, manic energy was gone. She looked older. Frankly, her hair wasn't as perfectly coiffed, and she wore simpler clothes. But her eyes were clear. The fog had lifted. "Dr. Phil," she said, shaking my hand with a grip that was firm, "I wanted you to know I got a job." "That's great, Sarah," I said, motioning for her to sit. "Back in education?" "No," she shook her head. "I couldn't go back. The shame, everyone in the district knew. I'm working at a garden center. It's minimum wage, basically, but I like it. I like getting my hands in the dirt. It feels real. Plants don't lie to you. If you water them, they grow. If you don't, they die. It's simple." "Simple is good," I agreed. "How is the debt?" "It's manageable," she said, a shadow crossing her face. "I had to sell the house. That was hard. Emily helped me pack. I'm renting a small apartment now. It's tiny, but it's mine. And nobody owns a piece of it but me." "And Richard?" I asked. I had to ask. She looked down at her hands. "He tried to contact me. About a month after the show, new number, new email. He said he saw the show and that you forced me to say those things. He said he forgave me for betraying him, and I felt that pull," she admitted. "For a split second, I felt that rush. He forgives me. Can you believe that? The audacity. But then I looked at the note on my mirror. I am worth more than a lie. And I looked at the picture of Margaret I keep on my fridge, and I blocked him. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I just hit block." "That is a victory," I said, slamming my hand on the desk for emphasis. "That is the championship ring right there. You didn't engage. You cut the oxygen." "It still hurts," she said softly. "I still miss the feeling of being adored. I don't miss him because he wasn't real, but I miss the version of me that existed when I was with him. She was so happy. She was so full of hope. She was high," I corrected her gently. "She was high on a fantasy, and coming down is hard. But the woman sitting in front of me, the one who is working a job, paying her debts, and rebuilding her relationship with her daughter, that woman is strong. That woman is real. And trust me, Sarah, real is better than happy, because real lasts." She nodded, a small, genuine smile touching her lips. "Emily and I are taking a pottery class together on Tuesdays. It's messy. We're terrible at it. But we laugh. We actually laugh. That's what it's all about," I said. Connection. Real connection. Not pixels on a screen, clay on your hands. As she left my office, I watched her walk away. She wasn't the broken woman who had stumbled off my stage 6 months ago. She was scarred, yes. She was poorer financially. But she was whole. She had reclaimed her narrative. This story, Sarah's story, is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, but also a stark warning of its fragility. We are all searching for meaning, for validation, for love. And in that search, we are vulnerable. The secret, she told me, wasn't just about a boyfriend. It was about the lengths we will go to avoid facing our own emptiness. I walked to the window and looked out over the Paramount lot. People were rushing around, busy with the business of making illusions. Movies, TV shows, we sell fantasies for a living. But my job, the job of Dr. Phil, is to pierce the illusion, to find the truth buried under the script. Sarah found her truth. It cost her everything she had, but she bought back her life. And in the end, that is the only transaction that matters.